everyone, welcome to today's session where we're going to begin the series Literary Terms and Figures of Speech. And in this particular session, we will discuss about lyric and its types. Lyric can be defined as a complete song or a short poem in which a speaker expresses his or her emotions and thoughts. The term lyric originates from the Greek word lyre. Lyre is an instrument which Grecians used to play while reading any poem. That's why lyrics are also popular for their musical quality and rhythm. While writing any lyric, a poet expresses a specific mood and a range of emotions. These emotions can be from extreme to nebulous, it can be related to death, love, and life. That's why it becomes easy for the readers to engage with the lyric because it enables the readers to look into life more deeply, and the readers can relate to the lyric due to its emotional engagement. Lyric has several types, such as sonnet, elegy, ode, dramatic monologue, and occasional poetry. As these three are prescribed in your syllabus, sonnet, elegy, and ode. Sonnet we are discussing now, and in the succeeding lecture, I will discuss with you elegy and ode. And if you want to know about dramatic monologue, then I have already discussed about it in one of my previous lectures, the link of which I have given in the description below. And if we talk about occasional poetry, then occasional poetry is a poetry which is composed or written for specific occasions like weddings, anniversaries, birthdays, victories, or dedications. The most famous are John Dryden's Annus Mirabilis and Edmund Spenser's Epithalamion, which is a wedding song. Let's begin the sonnet now. And if we describe it in one line, then a sonnet is a type of 14-line poem. In other words, any poem which is of 14 line, which consists of 14 line, can be called a sonnet. There are variety of sonnets due to the experiments done with this specific form from its origin, from the time when it was originated up to now. It has its own story of evolution, it has its own journey of various phases as per the poets, as the poets experimented with this form in their own way. But the most common types of sonnets are two types of sonnets: Italian sonnet and the English sonnet. And as I have discussed that that sonnet is a type of lyric. That's why it has its own portion or its own space for rhythms, rhymes, and music. And the word sonnet itself is derived from the word sonetto, from this Italian word sonetto, which means a little sound or strain. That's why it has its standard rhyme scheme, and it has its typical meter, which is iambic pentameter. A very typical sonnet is composed in this standard meter, which is iambic pentameter and rhyme scheme. And as this rhythm and rhyme is already prescribed in your syllabus, and moreover, to understand what is the how can we identify rhyme scheme of any poem, or what does it mean by iambic pentameter, what does it mean by meter, then there is a lecture which I have already in which I have already discussed about these terminologies like rhythm, rhyme, rhythmic pattern, iambic, penta, meter. So I encourage you, or I urge you, that you should watch that lecture as a part of your syllabus, as well as for the better understanding of these terminologies or terms like meter, rhyme, scheme, and rhythm. So coming back, the sonnet, a typical sonnet is written in a particular or standard rhyme scheme or rhythm, and the standard meter is iambic pentameter. So let's see what is Italian sonnet. Actually, it was originated or invented by this 13th century poet Giacomo da Lentini, but it was popularized by the poet from Tuscany, Italy. The name of the poet was or is Francesco Petrarch. And since it was popularized by Petrarch, how he popularized it, he uses this form sonnet. He uses this form of Lentini which inventor was Lanthony. That's why he uses his form to express his unrequited love for a woman named Laura. And it is from that moment or that time when he was writing these sonnets or these poems and using this form sonnet for his unrequited love for a woman named Laura, he popularized it. That's why Italian sonnet, as he belonged to Italy, and Italian sonnet is named after or also known as Petrarchan sonnet. And traditionally also sonnets are composed for these specific themes, uh, love, unrequited love. But as the time passes, many poets experimented it, like Milton deviated from the whole subject theme or subject matter of this unrequited love. He wrote it for his own uh, different theme, his own dilemmas related to his conflicts, internal conflicts. So but traditionally the sonnet used to be written for the unrequited love or love. Now if we uh, want to understand that how an Italian sonnet is composed, what is the proper structure of Italian sonnet, then there is a typical Petrarchan sonnet is being displayed on the screen. If you observe it carefully, then you can find that this sonnet has been divided into two major portions, as you can see. And for your information, I want to tell you that Petrarchan sonnet is usually not, Petrarchan sonnet is divided into octave and sestet. These are the two major units of Petrarchan or Italian sonnet, octave or sestet. And if you see this sonnet, then this is also divided into two major units. The first unit consists of 8 lines. As you can see that there are two quatrains. A quatrain is a stanza of 4 lines, and there are two quatrains. That means there are total 8 lines, which we call octave. And the next portion consists of 6 lines, and these 6 lines are further divided into tercets. There are two tercets. Tercet is a stanza of 3 lines. So there is an octave and sestet, and it is composed of octave and sestet. That is the identification of a Petrarchan sonnet, because Petrarchan sonnet is divided into two portions, octave and sestet. And furthermore, an octave always introduces a problem. It proposes a problem, it proposes a question, it proposes a conflict or dilemma. So that's why the first this first portion, octave, is called proposition. And then this proposition is followed by a resolution, and this resolution we always find in the sestet. In the next 6 lines we always get the resolution, the resolve, the solution of the problem which was proposed in the octave. And after the 8th line, from 8th to the 9th line, there is a turn, there is a shift of from problem to solution. And this shift from problem to solution is called volta. So these are some terminologies, or we can say terms related to sonnet, which you must know, which you must bear in mind while reading any Petrarchan sonnet, so that you can easily identify the proposition sustains or contains in octave, and the resolution contains in this state, and the volta. And you can also notice the volta, which we will find from 8th to 9th line. So this is what we call Petrarchan or Italian sonnet. The next is English sonnet. And this English sonnet was introduced by Thomas White in 16th century, and he introduced it by translating the works of Petrarch from Italian to English. He translated Petrarchan sonnets or works of Petrarch from Italian to English, and in this way he introduced this new form of poetry, which is sonnet to English language. And then his contemporary Henry Howard, who was the Earl of Surrey, he made innovations in this form. And what he did, he introduced a new structure and rhyme scheme, and this new structure and rhyme scheme was rather than using or rather than dividing the 14 lines into octave and sestet, what he did, he divided the first 12 lines into three quatrains. And as I have told you that a quatrain is a stanza of 4 lines. So there are 12 lines in three quatrains, followed by a couplet. Couplet is a stanza of 2 lines. In this way, this is also 14-line poem, but the division is different, and he also employs his new rhyme scheme, that is A B A B C D C D E F E F G G. To get the proper understanding or better understanding of this structure, there is an example displaying on the screen. You can see that there are three quatrains and then followed by couplet. And in this sort of or this type of sonnet, we will always find, or we mostly we find that the crux of the whole sonnet or the climax of the poet's thought we always find in the last 2 lines in the couplet. So this is what a different or distinctive characteristic of this form of sonnet. And one more thing, that this sonnet is also called Shakespearean sonnet uh, because Shakespeare was the ardent practitioner and one of the famous writers of this type of poetry, which is sonnet. That's why it is also it is known as Shakespearean sonnet, or it is named after Shakespeare. And it is also called Elizabethan sonnet because it was the time of Queen Elizabeth when this form of poetry reached to its immense popularity. And as I have told you, that sonnet has its own story or own journey of evolution. It has gone through many phases of changes, and some of I have mentioned, like Spenserian sonnet. The English poet Edmund Spenser, he also created his own version of sonnet. What he did, he employed his own way of rhyme scheme. He changed the rhyme scheme, like A B A B, B C B C, C D C D E E. And then there is Miltonic sonnet. Though Milton used a typical uh, uh, structure of the sonnet, he follows the typical or standard structure of the sonnet. But as I have also slightly mentioned, that Milton didn't choose the typical theme of sonnets, which is unrequited love or love. Rather than choosing those materialistic themes, he dealt with such themes like internal struggle or conflict or dilemma of man. And then there is modern sonnet. In the 20th century, many modern poets created their own variety or variations of the sonnet. What they did, they composed many sonnets, they composed many poems of 14 lines without following any rhyme scheme. Means they composed poems, they composed unrhymed poems, they didn't follow any rhyme scheme. And even some of the poets wrote inverted sonnet in the sense that they wrote sestet before the octave. So such are the experiments, and on that basis modern sonnet can be called that it can be any poem of 14 lines with or without a rhyme scheme. So that's all for today. I look forward to see you in the next session. Thank you for now.